Welcome back to the Leverage Lounge. And today I'm talking to a man who knows what real leverage looks like. Joel Perso is the founder of Growth Centric. Well, hey, listen, you've helped scale teams to 7 and 8 figures using a fractional COO model. Now, for those who've never heard of that, can you break that down? Like, why is this such a powerful lever for real estate teams?
Yeah, so fractional is basically part-time executives. Most small business owners have heard of like a fractional CFO, chief financial officer. Some people have heard of fractional CMO for marketing, and we're just really starting to see a wider adoption of CTOs, COOs. So for teams who either can't afford or just don't need a full-time executive, fractional is an incredible option to get so much of the benefit without the full-time cost and overhead that comes with a high-level executive.
And why do you feel like we're heading in that direction, I feel like? Do you agree?
Yeah, 100%. One of the reasons I started the firm, so I've been a full-time COO for just about 10 years over 3 different companies. And I started Growth Centric at the beginning of this year because I'm seeing this trend happen in small business. So when I'd say small business, I'm talking about under $5 million. So pretty small businesses. They're worried about cash flow, worried about profitability, and a lot of times gun shy for making a really important hire. But you need a lot of what those executives are going to bring. So for me, it's going to be a major part of the next 5-10 years in small business here for a couple reasons. One is VAs. And then the second big one's AI. So we're going to be able to get so much done with AI. Now you've got VAs that are powered by AI. You've got staff powered by AI. A lot of this just stuff that your executives used to do is not going to be necessary anymore. So when you hire fractional, you can get the experience, you can get the ability to execute, you can get that kind of been there, done that skill set without the 150, 200, 250,000 price tag on it.
Yeah. And I think that's important, man. I truly believe in the power of virtual assistants. That's what powers this podcast, powers my business. Now, Joel, you've sold 400 plus units a year as a broker owner. So you really do know what it's like to live in the chaos. Now, when you meet a team that's stuck, what's usually really holding them back from executing consistently?
For some teams, it's a lack of clarity, either clarity on the vision, where are we going, or clarity on the strategy. What exactly are we going to do to pursue that vision? What I see way more than that is it's a problem with execution. So most teams and team leaders, they've been good at sales and marketing. That part's come fairly easy to them. They tend to attract agents and talent to them. So they've been able to grow, but they're not good at executing. So we've got incredible amounts of information out there, whether it's on social media, on all the courses, the events that we attend. There's usually no shortage of, I know what to do. The problem is, okay, I either don't know how to do it or I'm trying to do it and it's just not working. So it's almost always an execution problem. And that's one of the major ways that fractional leadership differs from kind of traditional coaching or consulting, is that we're rolling up our sleeves. I'm on your org chart. I am building things in your business. It's not a one call per week. It's helping with the meeting rhythm. And ultimately, like I said, helping with execution. Execution it's an organizational skill that has to be developed. And there's principles behind it, just like there's principles behind most things. And if you don't know those principles and you're not practiced at applying those principles, you're going to stall out and fail a lot of times. And that's what we see most often, is it's a failure to execute.
So what's the first system or rhythm that you put in place that usually creates that traction that they're looking for?
I'll get to that in just a sec, but before we even get to that, one of the major failure points, and you'll appreciate this, you've been in all of the rooms with all of the big producers, all of the big teams. Most people are still trying to do too much. So you've got too many priorities, too many projects, and it's just a recipe for failure. So again, getting back to the value of fractional is, let's say, you and I are working together and you're like, hey, Joel, I want to do this. We got to execute on the podcast and I want to grow my YouTube and I want to focus on this new lead gen and we got to recruit. And part of the value that I can bring as kind of a strategic partner is just saying like, hey, slow down. Let's talk about what's most important to do. What's going to get us to our goals the fastest. Let's focus on 1, maybe 2 things, and let's execute at a really high level. So just the fact that you've got somebody with experience to come alongside you and say, hey, trying to do 7 things is a recipe for failure. Let's focus on 2. So even before we get to like, how are we actually going to do that? That's always the first step, is just focusing on the wildly important things. It's about fewer priorities. I love that old Jim Collins quote, says, if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any. And I think that's so true. So can we get it down to 1, maybe 2 strategic priorities every 90 days that we're going to focus on? So that's the first thing, is what's really important. What are the priorities? The second thing about how we start, actually executing, is we start to focus on the leading indicators. indicators. So something that people get wrong a lot is we focus too much on the lagging indicators. Lagging indicators are about results. Leading indicators are about activity. When we're starting to execute on something, we want to make sure that the activity is going to be driving that result in the end. So we focus on a leading indicator.
So can you walk us through what a powerful weekly execution cycle actually looks like?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan, especially in small businesses, and especially if you have a couple people on the team who are contributing to whatever you're executing on. I'm a huge fan of weekly execution cycles. A lot of, Lean or Scrum or some of those kind of project management systems, they call them sprints. And I've kind of adopted that too. So we call them weekly sprints. We've got a meeting that happens every Monday. We call our sprint meeting. And we're going to look at, okay, what are the priorities that we're trying to execute on? What are the tasks that we need to accomplish in order to move that project forward? And what can we commit to over the next 5 business days here that's going to do that? And so you'll have sprint meetings where it's like, hey, not much else going on in the business. We get a lot done this week. Some weeks are busy and you're going to get a little bit less done, but we do it every single week. We review the progress from last week. We talk about what we can commit to in the upcoming week, and then everybody just gets to work. When you start each week with the sprint planning and sprint meeting, you get a lot of clarity. Again, back to one of the other reasons people fail with execution. Everybody knows exactly what they're doing this week. And so the accountability is easy because we've got it written down somewhere. Could be as simple as written down in an email or in a Slack channel. What exactly everybody's going to do this week? When does it need to be completed by? And what does done even mean? So sometimes, again, we get off course because what does it really mean to, okay, how do we know we executed, right? Like, what does it actually mean to be done with something? And so that's part of that planning process too, is what does it mean to be done with this? Is it just that I built it, or is it that I trained the people on it and then I checked to make sure that it was working properly, and then I put in the accountability cadence at the end? So that idea of what does done mean is a really important piece.
What do we need to be focusing on? Like you said, maybe it's 1 or 2 things that we need to be focusing on, at least for this short amount of time. How do you have that conversation, man? Because people with big ideas think every idea is a good idea. And so they're trying to work, and you're kind of jailbreaking their mind and saying, we can get to it, but we're not going to do it right now. How do you have that conversation? And then what does that follow-up sequence look like, or that follow-through sequence look like as they're trying to adjust to this new normal, if you will?
First off, the hard part about guys like you is the ideas are mostly good. That's what makes it difficult to decide what to do, or that's what makes you want to try to do them all, is because there's not a lot of bad ideas in there. There's mostly good ideas, but you're right, we still can't do them all. So the only way it works, so whether I'm a full-time COO, a fractional, or we're just having a conversation, the only way it works is we've got clarity on the vision, we've got clarity on the strategy, and then when you try to go off course, I can tie it back to one of those 2 things. I have to be able to say, hey, Mike, that doesn't help us execute on the strategy we agreed on for this quarter. Or, hey, Mike, that does not help us achieve the vision that you said is super important to you. The only way it works is if we know where we're going, and then I can help tie it back to, hey, that doesn't get us there, or that pulls us off course, or maybe that just slows us down because it's too much. But if we don't have clarity there first, it's really, really hard for a head of operations or a COO to have that conversation, because, well, why not? Like, why isn't this a good idea? It sounds like a great idea. It's like, well, yeah, I guess it is a good idea. What am I going to say to that, right? I have to be able to tie it back to something that you either created, like the vision, or the strategy, like we made that together, but you agreed this is the strategy. And now it's up to you. And a lot of times this is a leadership maturity journey that people have to go on, is, okay, I'm willing to be held accountable and say, yeah, you're right, that doesn't get us to where we want to go. Or, yeah, you're right, we can't execute on all of these things yet. So that's how we have to have the conversation. And then what do we do with all those ideas? Again, I borrow another principle from the Scrum methodology, which is mostly a software development, project management thing, but I found it to be really helpful in small business, which is the idea of the backlog. All of the ideas go on the backlog. And that could just be a piece of paper. It could be a spreadsheet. It could be, again, a Slack channel. Put it on the backlog. Put it on the backlog. Hey, we're not going to do that right now. Put it on the backlog. And then when we get to our quarterly strategic planning, we can pull the backlog out and say, hey, do any of these ideas that we had over the last quarter or last year, whatever, make sense for us to make one of our few priorities now? And maybe the answer is, yeah, hey, it wasn't the right time to do Leverage Launch podcast last year, but it was the right time to do it this year. So that could be, hey, that was on the backlog for a while. I know you were thinking about it for probably years of launching a podcast like this. So that stayed on the backlog. Maybe the backlog was just in your head at the time. Right. But what that does too is it gives the